My name is Kylie Peppler, and I am a professor here of informatics and education at the University of California in Irvine. And I direct a group called the Creativity Labs. My own background is as an artist, and I specialize on the study of the intersection of the arts and new, especially computational technologies. Today, I'm wanting to share with you some of the findings from my NSF early career work, and also sponsored by the Wellcome Trust and NSF SciLearning Plus work at this intersection of the arts and STEM. And importantly with this, I want to start to train you to start to think about things that you can start to change. So if you're inspired to think about, creating a more inclusive curriculum, to thinking about inspiring this more creative and divergent approaches as JD was talking about, I think, I want to kind of train you to sort of what to look for, especially on things that you have a lot of control over, whether you're going to go shopping for the holidays this year, whether you're going to be purchasing new materials for your classroom, for your higher education, whatever those things are. This is really a point where you can start to create a really transformational learning environment. So a lot of times, we are kind of stuck in this problem within STEM in particular, that the participation in STEM is really stagnant, right? It is we're trying to diversify, but the underlying curriculum continues to emphasize areas, tools, and materials that are historically more closely aligned with male interests and women's in robotics, computer programming, and physics. And so, I want you to look at these tools and materials on this slide here, and I want you to kind of think about them, right? Oftentimes we take these existing tools off the shelf and their limitations, and we try to find ways to teach with these tools to course correct these shortcomings. So for example, I'm a fan of Lego robotics, but there's some limitations as well. So with Lego robotics, educators have oftentimes found that these were more, compelling for young boys, particularly white boys, to be interested in robotics. And so to kind of to get kids more interested, they veered away with moving away from like STEM competitions where the robots would battle each other and there was a winner and a loser, to thinking about galleries of artistic robotics. And this is sort of like a car that always wants to veer itself, 30 degrees to the left. And, you can kind of course correct this by turning the wheel. But as soon as you let go of the wheel, it'll start driving in that direction again. And so if we rethink our tools and materials, I just want to give you a new way to get things started in the right direction so you don't have to overcompensate in your teaching. So my work, works to challenge and investigate how we can better design our tools and materials. And so we're going to be understanding how to create, more inclusive environments, but also coincidentally, when we do so, we actually inspire, higher quality STEAM learning. So this next piece here is a whole bunch of new and innovative tools and materials. Thanks largely for the maker movement, to just amazing designers that we have in the field. There's some new common materials that you can buy, and these are commercial materials. And these are ones that can be used in physics labs or maker spaces to teach areas of STEM learning. I've been focusing in my work on teaching circuitry, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, because probably most of you have forgotten about this. But I want you to just formulate some hypotheses today. So look at these tools and materials. Which ones would you want to use this yourself? Which ones would you want to use in the classroom? Which ones do you think would encourage the greatest amount of learning? So I want you just to kind of say, who's going to be the big winner and the big loser here, and which ones do you think are designed for boys, for girls, for your students, right? And I want you to make note of these hypotheses. So just jot these down. You can even kind of put these in chat if you want to share them out with other folks. And let's see as we go through this talk today how this will compare with your hypotheses and what the research shows us. So first off, we wanted to start to understand how kids understood these materials. I was really motivated. I was working at this boys and girls clubs, and I would set up for the day and have a set of these kits on the table. And I was so shocked that, like, when the kids opened the door, within I'd say 5 to 10 seconds, they decided if what was on the table was for them and for their friends or not, and they'd close the door and walk away. And this is something in particular to free choice learning, but we don't have this kind of choice in schools. So oftentimes, again, just like that car scenario, we try to force kids to have experience with tools rather than really understanding which tools are really the best for learning and why. So this alerted us to that we needed to have a better understanding of how the kits I just showed you and so many more things, how the kids really perceived them. And we started off with gender, but you could think about race and culture and all sorts of things that are embedded in these tools as well. So we borrowed this classic sorting task, and you can see these 5 buckets here, kind of, whether these kits seem more boyish, more girlish, or in between. Oftentimes, this is a marketing approach where we ask adults to do this, to sort things into the toy aisle. And so go ahead here. You can kind of see how these all sorted out. So how does this compare with your hypotheses? So we see the e-textiles is probably the most girlish. We've got some here in the middle with squishy circuits and little bits and so forth. And we've got a lot of kind of very boyish kits as well with snap circuits and the traditional toolkit that you might have. So this alerted us that these toolkits, a lot of the kids said that there's nothing really here for girls. We need to invent new things, just like these designers have as well. All right, on the next slide, we're going to just refresh what you know about circuitry learning. So go ahead and just go to the next one. Thank you, Jim. All right. So if you're not alone if you don't remember circuitry. It's been in the curriculum for a long, long time that circuitry learning has been difficult or challenging to know. And so the big three ideas here are current flow, that current flows in a loop, that there's polarity, that it goes in a particular direction, and that there's these connections. All right, go ahead to the next slide. So what we did is we to understand which of these kits, and really I was motivated because I was studying e-textiles at the time, and everybody thought that the sewing would be a distraction from learning. And so I was just going to compare about 250 kids. We sorted them into these 5 groups. They took a pre-test. They had a 90-minute controlled intervention and a post-test to really see what they learned in that from this particular kit. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Here's what we found. That the first 4 kits showed significant changes in learning. And the one we use in schools, the hand to mind kit, showed no impact on learning whatsoever. And so with this, we start to think about how ineffective some of our toolkits that we've always been using can be for learning. There's no FDA for learning. And go ahead to this next slide. And really the crux of this all comes down to here. Is that when we start to look at what JD was talking about, divergent and generative thought, our toolkits that are more artistic, more girlish in nature, they allow for more divergent solutions. And we see the significant correlation between how girlish the kits are, how creative the kits are, and the kind of learning gain. So it's not an either or. When you go after these types of creative, more girly toolkits, you can actually improve learning. So as you pick your new tools and materials for your learning setting, I want to encourage you to pick up the girlish and artsy materials. These will attract more learners to participate and deepen your learning outcomes. Well, thank you. All right, I look forward to being in conversation with all of you today. Please do email me and we can be chatting about this as well.